Hello guys, welcome back. I know I should be doing something that would be uplifting in times such as these. However, today I thought I'd do quite an interesting video, although it's quite a dark subject matter, and that is on my top 5 worst humans. These people range from serial killers to dictators. They are who I believe have absolutely no redeeming qualities at all. They are the absolute worst of humanity. So, let's do the list. In at number 5 we have Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. They were of course known as the Moors murderers, and they carried out those evil deeds from 1962 until October 1965. Their spree was brought to an end by Myra Hindley's brother-in-law, David Smith, who was invited to their home and made to be involved in the killing of Edward Evans, their 5th and final victim. This man was bludgeoned to death via an axe, and it was the most horrendous scene anyone could ever witness. So bad, in fact, that after David Smith was made to clean up, he ran home and was violently sick and was in floods of tears. And the next morning, he and his wife, Myra Hindley's sister, Maureen, went and phoned the police and of course gave evidence against Myra and Ian. Thankfully, they were both convicted in 1966 at Chester Assizes of the murders of 3 of their victims, those being Leslie Ann Downey, John Kilbride and Edward Evans. Myra Hindley wasn't convicted of the murder of John Kilbride, but was found guilty as an accessory. As we know, they did indeed kill 5 children. 2 were discovered in 1987 when Ian Brady confessed to the 2 more murders, those being Keith Bennett and Pauline Reed. Pauline Reed was discovered in 1987. However, Keith has never been found. It's become an extremely tragic story, as many of us saw in the news of Keith's mother Winnie longing to find her son, and neither Myra or Ian would give up the secret. They really did prove to be one of the most evil couples in history. Thankfully, both are now dead and will be remembered always for being the first evil killer couple of the United Kingdom. Ian died in 2017 and Myra Hindley died in 2002. In at number 4 we have Idi Amin, President of Uganda from 1971 until 1979. During that time he proved to be one of the most brutal of dictators. He seized complete and utter power in Uganda as a one-man army. This man was barbaric. He would kill innocent civilians, simply shoot them in the street himself, and has actually been accused of cannibalism. We've known many evil people through history, but very few have been suspected of doing such a heinous, vile and disgusting deed. Throughout his time in power, it is believed that he had ordered the deaths of some 300,000 civilians. Now that may sound like a lot by comparison to other dictators that we know of. However, for such a small country with quite a low population, that was an unbelievably high number. Idi Amin was removed from power in 1979 and went into exile, where he died in 2003. At number 3 we have another serial killer couple in Fred and Rose West. Now I've put them above Myra and Ian because although Myra Hindley was involved in the killings, she was not involved in any of the sexual assaults of the children. However, in the case of Fred and Rose, they were both sexual sadists and committed the most heinous crimes upon the 11 women that Rose alone was convicted of, as Fred had hung himself before he could be convicted. Fred and Rose were discovered to be serial killers due to their children. Whilst they were in care, spoke about and joked about their sister Heather being buried under their patio. This was of course proven to be right, and it tremendously shocked the police and other investigators who were at the scene of 25 Cromwell Street, where the Wests lived. Many of the women were found with bondage equipment on their bodies. It was the most heinous scene, according to many of the investigators who were there. In fact, those who were there included Paul Britton, who has investigated a number of murder cases and has said he has never seen barbarity like the case of the Wests. So I think they thoroughly deserve their spot at number 3. Of course, Fred hung himself on New Year's Eve of 1995. However, Rose West is still alive, serving a whole life tariff. Of course, for her notoriety, she has faced a lot of abuse in prisons by many other female prisoners, as did Myra Hindley, as for a long time they were the only 2 women in the United Kingdom to receive a whole life sentence. In at number 2, we have Adolf Hitler. Many regard Hitler as the most evil dictator that ever lived. He was responsible for the deaths of millions, a lot more than the 6 million figure that we have often been told. That 6 million is the Jews alone that were killed. However, there are a number of other minority groups that were killed by the Nazis. Hitler wasn't the only Nazi to have been brutal and evil to the core. Himmler, Goebbels and Goering were all equal in their psychopathic and sadistic natures. Of course, Hitler committed suicide in 1945. However, many do believe that he, along with a number of Nazi war criminals, escaped to Argentina in 1946, although we will never know the truth. Hitler was a brutal man in his private life as well as in public. He was responsible for the suicides of 2 women who killed themselves due to his sexual and mental manipulation, which I do think is even further proof of truly how evil Hitler was. And at number 1, we have Joseph Stalin. Stalin was responsible for some 50 million deaths in his time as dictator of the USSR. He was an extremely manipulative man. He used the death of Lenin to his own advantage in order to seize power. He attended his funeral and made out that he was deeply sorry for the loss of Lenin, and all he simply wanted was to become the dictator of the Soviet Union, and he indeed did. His regime was extremely brutal. The gulags were a place of absolute horrors. Prisoners of war in particular were tortured beyond belief, in a similar fashion to how they were in Japan. The communist regime caused thousands of deaths via collectivization of wheat, as it caused a number of the peoples of the Soviet Union to die of starvation due to their lack of crops as they were collected by the state. If that isn't an argument against communism, then I don't know what is. So there we are. That was my top 5 worst humans in history. I thought it was an interesting topic to talk about. We are often fascinated by the evil deeds of people. I certainly am. I've always been interested in the dark side of history and of crime. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a comment. Who do you think is the most evil person in history? Or give your list. Who is your top 5 worst people in history?